guys know, I've been working around the clock trying to get signatures for Referendum 101, which will send Senate Bill 5599 to voters. To me, it's an issue of parental rights. And, we've had a couple meet and greets. We're going to squeeze one in when we're in Richland. I've been trying to do everything I can on this show to let people know about it. And I will say, honestly, referendums are very hard. We need 200,000 signatures in a very short period of time. And when you think about it, 200,000 is a lot. It's a huge chunk of the people who actually come out to vote. So that's a big endeavor. And I'm not blind to that. I know that. I know that we could put in all this work and do all these meet and greets. And I mean, I'm at the end of this probably going to be out of pocket, a couple $1,000s personally for the cost of security now that I'm getting protested at these events. But I really believe that if we don't stop 5599 in its tracks, that worse things are going to come. And people will eventually, parents especially, regret those things and perhaps regret not having fought against 5599 harder. So given all the personal work that we're putting into this, even knowing that it is an uphill battle, I was livid when I saw a letter over the weekend, and it was actually sent out on June 15th, but we broke this story yesterday on social media, and it was the first time I was seeing this letter, the first time the public is aware of it. And the letter came from the State Catholic Church Conference. And so it's not unusual for, churches to get involved in political fights, etc. It's certainly not unheard of. And apparently they had been asked by a few of their parishes whether it was okay to collect signatures for Referendum 101. So again, the Washington State Catholic Conference. So they sent out this letter on June 15th. None of this makes sense, but I'm going to read a couple passages from the letter. The general gist is they tell parishes you're not allowed to collect signatures. And here's the rationale. They said, we have recently received inquiries regarding Referendum 101, also known as the Reject 5599 campaign. This campaign seeks to overturn Senate Bill 5599, which passed during the recent 2023 legislative session. The Washington State Catholic Conference is taking no position on this referendum. This means signatures may not be collected at parishes. Now, what's odd about that is the Washington State Catholic Conference actually came out in opposition to 5599 when it was being debated in Olympia. So it's not as if they have not taken a political position on the underlying bill. But now all of a sudden they say that the conference will not be taking a position on the referendum to overturn the bill that they took a position on just a few months ago. And they're not going to allow parishes to collect signatures, which is also concerning because having spoken to people who are involved in 101, churches so far have been one of the biggest contributors to signatures. You have people who share a certain set of values, they're gathered in mass, and it's really easy to collect signatures there. And I saw this and I'm thinking, well, what would be the rationale? So let's read on. They write, the WSCC's current assessment is that the campaign to get Referendum 101 on the ballot is too far behind in collecting signatures and obtaining needed funding for a successful effort. The referendum is not likely to both make it on the ballot and pass in November's election. Now, look, I don't know who they're getting that assessment from. I've reached out to the folks from Referendum 101, and they couldn't even give me an assessment of the number of signatures they've gathered so far because those forms are just starting to come back in. So part of me is like, well, where are they getting their assessment? Because I haven't even been able to get an up-to-date assessment yet. But the other thing I would point out is that the letter was sent on June 15th. So when the letter was sent, there's still more than a month left to gather signatures. And so what you're saying is, we don't think it's going to be successful, so we're not even going to try to use what is probably the most powerful tool to gather signatures on this issue rapidly, your parishes, where you have people gathering, again, in mass. You're not even going to try to help because you don't think it's going to be successful. That doesn't make any sense. Let's read on. They say, at the same time, the WSCC certainly supports individual parishioners signing the petition if they choose to do so. We support advocacy that is in line with the bishop's priorities. However, because the measure is unlikely to be successful, we are not actively encouraging parishes to take action on this referendum. Something is up here. This does not pass the smell test. There is no downside for the Washington State Catholic Conference to allow parishes to collect signatures if they choose. There's no downside to that. You might be saying, well, maybe they don't want to ruffle any feathers of parishioners who might be Democrats. But again, they already took a position on SB 5599. They were opposed to it. So they've already ruffled those feathers. It's not unusual for them to help collect signatures for things. They're basically saying, we're just going to give up. And the thing that really ticks me off about that, like here I am, I'm not even conservative. I don't consider myself a conservative. Am I conservative on certain issues? Sure. I'm not even pro-life. I'm pro-choice in most instances. And I'm not even against transgender care as long as it's done in consultation with parents. And so the Catholic Church arguably has far more reasons to support the R101 campaign than I do. Yet here they are, not only throwing in the towel, but actively stopping their parishes from assisting in the effort. Again, something's not right there. Something does not add up there. And I could think of, conspiracies and political motivations. I don't know. And I don't know how you prove that. And I certainly hope that there are churches, parishes, who are going to just ignore that and continue to collect signatures. Because again, they threw in the towel with more than a month left to collect the necessary signatures with no idea, truly, where it was in the process. So here are the rest of us busting our asses trying to get signatures for a referendum that we know is a difficult task. And you have an entity that could help out immensely. An entity, when you look at ideologically and its values, that has so much more at stake when it comes to the impacts of 5599. And they're like, no, that's wild. And I don't know what to do about that. I'm not a Catholic. But I am so curious to hear from you who are, how you feel about that, whether you've reached out to the Catholic Conference, whether you have a thought as to what might be going on. But this is truly unbelievable. I've heard from a few people who are pretty angered over it and are trying to get to the bottom of what exactly is going on. But the Catholic Church has every reason in the world to support Referendum 101, and not a single legitimate reason, as is evidenced by the letter, not to support it, not to do everything that they possibly can to give it a fighting chance.